Radio Cayman,
the voice,
the heart, the soul of the Cayman Islands.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. And Royal Fidelity Bank and Trust, money at work.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Wow, it's a Tuesday. Hopefully it's a terrific Tuesday. One day you're thankful. One day you can see, that's going to be a treasure. Hey, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. We invite you to be a part of our discussion. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow,
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. And thanks for joining us. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. At 1:30, our good friends from the Health Services Authority will join us as we shine the light on sickle cell disorder as we celebrate World Sickle Cell Day. We'll have Dr. Matthews and Dr. Lamsey Ebanks together with Nurse Joy Marion. But that's 1:30. The schedule calls for something else. No, we'll see if that materializes. But as the show must go on, it's live and direct, and we want you to be a part of, the ongoing discussion. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. I still recognize that there's a lot of us who, have continuing questions about what is transpiring. Those who have been incentivized to get an injection, those who are confused and conflicted, those who feel certainly convinced one way or the other. Perhaps with a sense of civility and a sense of sobriety, we can move forward with a sense of integrity and do what we believe is best. Being respectful of individual choices, not feeling unduly pressured, nor unduly pressuring others. But what is your view with respect to all of the, not just, irresponsible banter? Let's try to be constructive, but still maybe a lot of unanswered questions, perhaps even unasked as well. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Let's go to the phones. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Sterling?
Hi, how are you?
Ask you that after the sunset.
Hey, I can do that, I think the joy of the day continues from, sunrise to sunrise, right?
Yeah. Sterling, what I'm calling is because I live by myself and I not an extravagant person when it comes to electricity. But I use a lot of water. I don't mind paying a water bill. Paying on the start too, and I use a lot of water. And Sterling, when you know that it's only you one and you don't cut your stove once a month, and you're going to have additional of $80 add on to your electricity, then your bill was just $120 the month before. And Now it's down to $214 for one person.
Yeah.
You can imagine the average mother, single mother, with 2-3 children, probably don't have no AC, but got their fans are running.
Yeah.
You know.
But you know.
So I don't know. We're praying for all these lockdown, like poles down. Every time somebody knocks on them poles down, that all being divided onto everybody's
It's interesting though that you mentioned that, and I think CUC is one of those companies where we see the employees as being absolutely fantastic. We go in there and we probably grumble and complain about the bill that we pay, but the staff, and even now the extended staff that they're utilizing through the sort of their third-party collectors at the gas stations, for instance, they're also so nice, wonderful, pleasant people. I mean, I always have a great experience. One of the few bills that I like to pay in person because of the interaction. But then when we pay, we complain because we feel like we're being shafted, as you said, right? Why is that? Why is that we feel that our electric bill is higher than what it should be?
Well, Sterling, I do understand it, and I don't think I'll ever live to understand it to the point that, you know, I know things has to go up, Sterling, but Cayman is the most expensive place to probably in the whole wide world.
Well, probably not, but that's something that we've, like everything else, right? We repeat and allow people to. Anyway, I'll come to that in a second. But even, Mom, with that though, maybe I can ask of you, just as you shared, your bill, seemingly when you try to even reduce it, just like the comment of many, they go away for a long time and their bill is still the same, if not more, even though they think they have done things to reduce it, or it's only one of them in the house as opposed to 10 in the past, but their bill is higher. What do you think? I mean, we feel like I don't know what, feel like we're being shafted.
That's not a word, but I can't say it in a line.
Well, let me see. What's another word?
Yeah, Sterling, oh, even lost what I was going to say.
But
I came here to pay no extra $80 today. I know, like, bill that I feel like I did not use to be paying and stuff. Sterling, are we a free enterprise, this Cayman Island? Are we a free enterprise?
Well, some would say probably that's part of the reason why there's so much. I mean, that,
Well, I had a businesswoman to tell me that, and she told me, she says, as long as you're a free enterprise, we will never get any better with our pricing. There's a big businesswoman here, has a big company here in this island that everybody goes and shop at every day. If they could go shop on a Sunday, they would.
Yeah.
And she told me, she said, as long as we are free enterprise, the prices will never get any better in the Cayman Islands.
So
I'm not saying we got to be thankful for what we get on this island. Don't get me wrong.
But we pay for it.
But my God, and the dollar no value nothing to us.
Yeah.
The Cayman dollar has no value. Only those that come here and work and send it over to their country, they get more value than we that live here with our money.
Right. So the friend, the lady that said, as long as we're a free enterprise, did she suggest what needs to happen, what we need to do in order to address that to her mind? Did she give you any input?
She don't say it needs to be changed. It needs something needs to be done about it because even though they have a business, it's ridiculous.
But did she say what needs to be done?
That's been so long ago, I can't really say exactly word for word, but she doesn't say as long as we free enterprise,
okay.
we will have a problem and it needs to be fixed.
Let me ask you and indirectly everybody else. So let's say that the proposal is that the government, through regulation, intervenes and set price controls. Do we think that would help any? I mean, if a government says, well, this has to be at this price, this can't be no higher than this needs to be the way it is, do you think that level of government regulation would improve things or make it worse?
Sterling, I'm not going to say yes and I'm going to say no because I'm not too into all that.
Fair enough.
Linger with whatever the word is with the situation. I don't know, but someone need to sit down and figure out the best way to go about how we're going to survive in this island. Because someone called your station some time ago, I think it was my friend there in West Bay, stating that she went to one of the Caribbean islands and they got a price for the visitors and they got a price for the for their own people.
Right.
That's all good and well. But if we was even thinking about bringing that here to the Cayman Islands, the first thing I'm going to say is that, that is racist. And that is
But isn't it?
That's not fair.
Yeah, it's not a level of discrimination. I mean, what is the difference between prices for, let's say, the residents and prices for visitors, as opposed to, well, residents can only shop in this area and visitors in that area.
No,
If
we
we,
want that.
if we start to divide people like we're already doing in this country, right? Is
I'm not cutting you
No,
short,
no,
but
you go ahead, ma.
You know what all boils down to?
Mm.
We have taken this island for granted.
Mm.
We have taken the people for granted. We have taken the businesses for granted. We have taken the strongest dollar for granted.
Mm.
And we did not expect this island to grow the way it has grown. And it's out of whack. And I don't think there's any government that can fix anything in this island to bring it back to a level that we can survive, because right now it's all about the Joneses and the no Joneses. I don't care if you eat and just don't care if I drink. Early this morning I was thinking, where Cayman has gone. We used to be able to call on our neighbors. We used to this, we used to that.
Mm.
They would look at you today and barely get good morning up to you. They see you outside laying down in the yard, and they just toss it in if you turn in or you fall down. You know? But starting reeling seriously, I don't know what's going to take for Cayman to get any better when it comes to our pricing here on this island, because I know I went somewhere some time ago and something was at a certain price, and when I went back, there was $3 added on to the same item. $3 had been added on to the box.
Mm.
$3.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I know that this food and everything we get here got to come from afar. But Jesus have mercy. It's got to be some sort of decently way for us to survive. You know, when the people that be paying their bills today and got to make a choice between light bill and water bill, and their groceries for their home for their children, and school is closing the 9th of July, or children. I mean, I'm not asking about how pity on us, but make us be able to live too.
Mm-hmm.
We are living to pay bills and can't survive. You wonder where you're going to eat when you go home. You open the cabinet, you close the door. You open the fridge, you close the fridge. And let me tell you something, I do that too.
Mm. But it is that maybe we're failing again to adhere or even to acknowledge the wisdom of our elders. Remember, they used to say a penny saved is a penny earned, right? And so when we go about our society, for instance, and justifiably so, the worker is saying, not making enough money, I need to pay a raise. And the cost of living is going there, the bread, milk, electricity, all the things cost them more and more. So when the paycheck is cashed, it isn't enough to pay the, the sort of basic necessities in some cases. Eventually, there may be a pay raise, but that pay raise is then, met with an increase in prices to pay for the pay raise, which then puts the paycheck even less and less, so you have less money to spend. What economists talk about disposable income, right? And then another pay raise is requested, and prices go up to pay for the pay raise, and all of a sudden you got serious inflation. Is there a way?
Like I told you a couple of weeks ago, I do have a bonus payment, but I don't have $1 saved.
Well, you're probably like a lot of people, unfortunately, right? And even those that have a few dollars saved, the problem in society is nobody's listening. My brother talks about, who's listening, can't help, who can help not listening. And we are not willing. Dr. Frank Collin yesterday talked about intellectual discussion. We can change that up slightly, but are we sincere? Are we genuine? Are we paying attention? Are we just blabbing our mouths just to hear our own voices? Are we willing to sit and listen and reason and rationalize and be
We're
civil?
not doing that.
Right?
We're just going along.
I mean, you ask somebody how they're doing. Are we listening for the response to truly appreciate how that person is doing, or are we just making polite chatter mid-step? It's unfortunately the ignorance that prevails, and it's usually in the position of people that we have elected, not necessarily politically, elected and appointed, and we ourselves failing. Any quick thoughts before we go to the break, Mom?
Well, right now, Helen, I am smoking, so I'm going to leave that there and just pray to God that He'll open more doors for this island, because it's not looking pretty for a lot of people who's desperately in need, and not because that I don't have that I'm by myself, that I don't want to live too. I'm not an extravagant person, and I have to rob Peter to pay Paul when I'm ready. Yeah. And my salary doesn't cut the mustard. Yeah. That stipend that the government been given, that's been going into my car. So now they say they're going to cut that. So I don't know what we're going to do. But I tell you what, only God can help us right now, Sterling. Only God. And that's why I'm going to call on more than ever.
Well,
continue
yes,
Mom. Help us, because man and that can't help us. Yeah. Because so many things has changed since this government ready, and so many things have been taken back. So many things is happening, and nobody's coming and talking about it.
Well, there is that, but maybe the last government, like many governments, politicized many things, especially on the eve of election. Maybe the expectations of the electorate and the general populace is unreasonable. Maybe those that we elect themselves sometimes, don't have. That's what they need to stop coming out here promising what they can do. Just say they're going to run the election and come out here and surprise us with goodness and stop promising us for the promise of comfort of food. Exactly. And that's what we fill up on this island. Well, maybe we should stop, waiting on politicians or the pundits or even business people. Maybe we need to recognize that the power rests in the people coming together and working together. But let's talk about that.
We can't come together, Sterling.
We can, and we will.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what a problem is. All this pride. But when it comes to pride of wanting to murder and commit and rob bullet people and all that kind of stuff, that they don't think for a second that what they're doing then. But when it comes to saving our country and saving our children, you can fight for the country without throwing a blow or a knife on the head.
Yeah, man.
I don't want that to happen.
All right. Well, it won't and it shouldn't. Hey, thank you very much. Let me stay on the not aside of Susan so that we can get to the break. But oh boy, good discussion. Let's pause and take a break. When they come back, those are the callers. If you can, just stay on the line. We'll join you. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Things just got a bit hotter on island. Come in today and order the new spicy Korean subs at Subway. They're sweet, spicy, and especially satisfying. Stop in and try the pulled pork with spicy Korean sauce, or the chicken with spicy Korean sauce. And you can message WhatsApp at 929-4658. Order online or use Let's Eat or the Bento app. The spicy Korean subs at Subway in 2 flavors, extra saucy and extra spicy. Subway, eat fresh.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
We are now in the hurricane season, and to survive a hurricane, you need to be informed. If you have been informed by official sources that a hurricane is approaching the Cayman Islands, and you live in a low-lying area that is prone to flooding or near the beaches, which may be swept by high tides or storm waves, please seek a safe place and high ground. If the only way for you to get to a safe place is a road that is also likely to be flooded during a storm, please leave home early. Don't run the risk of being stranded. This has been a public service announcement from your community station, Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions.
Talk today. Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And thank you for joining us. Let's go straight to our phones, and those who can, please feel it. The invitation is extended to you equally to join us. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
Sterling.
Brother G, how are you today, sir?
Hi. How is you?
I am blessed, man. They say those who persevere and press on shall see the reward.
Okay, that's good then. But I can play press on too. Sometime I say, I don't want to call in anymore, but this is my home.
Well, why wouldn't you want to call in?
And no, because I get discouraged.
Okay.
You know, although I mean, I consider myself a strong person, but I get discouraged.
Okay, fair enough.
On
But
my own, I call this home, you know, on my particular home, because I know people. I born here.
But even if you were not born here, could we not make this our home?
In Mosquitoes. Yeah, plenty of people make their home other parts of the world. All over the world, people go.
Okay.
Caymanians go to other parts of the home
Right.
too. But
So,
anyhow,
but if
what
you
I'm calling about today, Mr. Sterling, is something that really bothers me and upset me. I heard an incident down at Cayman Bay. Don't know when it happened, but not too long ago, where some foreign person that has been living here in our island for a little while, maybe 8 months or a year or something, had their children down there on the little place where the water spout is, where the kids play down at Cayman Bay there.
the little fountain? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the little fountain there. And I understand a local Caymanian took their kid down there, and when the foreign person with their children saw the Caymanian woman come there with her children, she said, "Oh, come on, kids, let's go," because the locals always spies everything. Brother Sterling, I trying hard to get to heaven. I trying hard, but I don't know if I'm gonna make it. I don't know, but I still got faith, and I'm trying hard, because if I were down there now, that would have been a different thing, because people all when you tell people that you're a Christian, people expect more than you're supposed to be. And a Christian's supposed to be a human person that loves God and obeys God and is nice and kind and sweet and loving to everybody. But then he still tell you that you mustn't make nobody run you over.
Right, but if you look at it, right, maybe two things immediately jump to my mind as you say that. One, what the scripture reminds us, by their fruits ye shall know them, right?
Exactly.
But equally, look at, and again, this is just my impression, right? Look at the way some of the pastors in particular, weak and as insolent as they are, right? Because some of them lack the skill set, so yet we follow them blindly, right? But they paint the picture of Jesus in the temple as this long-haired, hippie-looking, weak fella that goes in there and almost begging and pleading, with the people in there about what they're doing. I have a different impression. I see a tall, tan, muscular fella, very powerful in spirit and in word, and he going in there and he say, "Listen, I told him to behave, and I'm not carrying on this foolishness anymore," and he mashed up the tables, right? And he made a big scene and made a very impression. Now, he could have used more force and destroyed everything, but he set, a strong, in my mind, a strong presence by indicating that this behavior isn't going to be tolerated and not here and no more, right? And so that strength that is in there doesn't have to be exercised with a great degree of force. You didn't need a gun, right? You just need to be in spirit, right? A demonstration of a strong sense of presence. So is that a problem in our society? We don't stand up, we don't speak up, we don't stand in the gap. We're begrudgeful, undermining, hateful, and all these things to one another, right? So how?
Mr. Sterling, I wasn't no. If I were there, although I got a short week for certain time, it depends on how you speak the much. you know. It depends on how you split the match that my week is short. But if I were there and I had heard that, knowing that area, that when in the 60s and 70s, I used to go down there with my chip and clean the bush and rake it up. Wait until my parents come for us to have Easter picnics and all about that. Like, you know about it too and stuff. I wouldn't have been disrespectful, you know. I wouldn't have been disrespectful, but I would have liked to beg her, could you give me 5 minutes of your time, ma'am? If I'd heard that, I was going to work. And I wasn't beg her 5 minutes of her time. And when I tell her nicely and lovingly how it go from a local perspective, like person like me, let me tell you, oh, what a joy that would have been for me.
Okay.
Because I know what I was going to tell her, and I know how I was going to tell her. But, I mean, listen to what the lady said, I understand, words to this effect. Come, kids, let's go. The locals always spoil everything.
Okay, so twofold, right? One, some people, what does it say? Money can't buy class, right? Some people, just because of their experiences, really don't know any better, and we shouldn't necessarily condone them and respond either in a way that just shows that we don't know much better, right? But to what extent do you think many of us who live here, irrespective of how we may be classified, are sufficiently respectful, right, and respectable? So when we're using public facilities, right, let's say we go to the football stadium and we go to the bathroom, you know, do we use it and leave it in a way that's clean when we're in the parks? Not just I'm not talking about people who have been here for generations or just come here, just as people who live in this space. How many of us are really conducting ourselves within a sense of decorum and respect and appreciation and consideration for the space and for the others, right? Because I would worry that we're becoming a place where, look at the amount of garbage there's around on our streets. Now, as the caller leaves us with the actual unfortunate incident that there are many of us, maybe because we think the office that we occupy, the title of the job that we have, the amount of money that we either believe we have or want to project that we have, maybe even sadly the color of our skin or our ethnicity or the nationality, or whatever it is, we may think that someone makes us better. But does it? Many probably seen or heard this quote, and they're probably, as I'm told, attributed to Nelson Mandela, reliably sort of believing from the person who shared it with me that this actually was said by one of the United Nations representatives, Mohammed Asafa. And the quote, irrespective of who said it, may resonate with some of us. It reads, a world is not divided by race, color, gender, or religion. A world is divided into wise people and fools divide themselves by race, color, gender, or religion. Now, think about it. And I don't believe that if we go back sometimes, maybe in Shakespeare, the fool was the jester. Or when we use a fool, we mean, it in a less respectful way. But the idea that we live in this space and we are being willingly divided, corralled sometimes. Well, look at the gated communities that have come up. We see the recent court cases. We see the decisions of planning authorities or authorities in general. And we wonder, if nothing is said or done, what's going to happen in 20 years from now? Are we able to look back 20 years and see the difference? And maybe 20 years from that, so go back another 40 or 60 or 100. The thing is, as you talk to your students, you can stand here and look forward 20 years, and it may seem an impossible task. But I would venture to say that if you look back 20 years from today's date, you could probably, with almost absolute clarity, be reminded of something that happened, and it would seem like it was this morning. we lack, vision and integrity? Are we lacking in civility and honor? Are we more inclined to seek some sort of award or a prize, a statue, or something? Because somehow maybe we're weak in spirit and worse, weak in character. Now, let us not point fingers. Let's see if we can uphold and uplift each other. It's a small place, and the caller talked about, the growing division and just how we, term Caymanians. We need to seriously look deep into how we can become, more cemented as a society, so that together we understand the importance of not just love and honor and integrity, but working collectively together. Now, nothing good comes easy, they say. If you want to succeed, you got to be willing to sacrifice. If you want to achieve something, you got to be willing to work. Not just work hard, work together, and work smart. Let's pause and take a short break, and when we come back, join us. You may have something that someone needs to hear, and that person might be me. So don't deny me of hearing good things that can help me. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Freedom, Cayman Brack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
The HSA Specialist Clinic has relocated to a new, modern, state-of-the-art facility at Smith Road Center to offer you a better patient experience. Receive care from top specialists in chiropractic, complementary and alternative medicine, neurology, ENT, urology, pain management, and more. Our orthopedic and telemedicine clinics remain at the Cayman Islands Hospital campus. Please remember to bring your own face mask when visiting any HSA location. Visit our website, hsa.ky, to learn more. At the HSA, you matter to us.
Census 2021 is coming, and we are looking for census workers. You are invited to one of the 3 information meetings to find out how to qualify to be trained and selected as a census worker. Meetings are 5:30 until 7 p.m. Thursday, June 17th at the Georgetown Primary School Hall, and Wednesday, June 23rd at the Sir John A. Comber School Hall in West Bay. Join the census team.
The Cayman Islands government and Celebrate Cayman invite you to the official renaming of sections of Harbor Drive on the Georgetown waterfront to Seafarers Way in honor of the outstanding contributions made by our island's seafarers.
The ceremony and reception will be held at the North Terminal, Georgetown on Friday, 25th June from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m.
Attendees are encouraged to dress in business attire or their Seafarers Association polos.
Hope to see you there, 10 a.m. Friday, June 25th at the North Terminal in Georgetown.
Talk today. But I do have some questions.
Talk today. Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, and welcome back. It is indeed another terrific day, and it gets better because we work together to make it that way. Sometimes we feel like we're alone in the catboat, and it isn't that we're trying to get, faster and further. It's that we would like somebody to ride the weatherboard so that we can, maybe have a good sail. But sometimes there is no wind, and sometimes, you just got to take out the oars and paddle alone. But when you're doing that, is it because you're just looking for selfish accomplishments, or you're actually trying to get somewhere to make it better for others, not just yourself? Think back, if you would. Maybe it was your uncle or your grandfather, but probably it was your father. He took the catboat out from the back of there. He rowed it out. There was no engine. Maybe there was no wind. Maybe the sail was torn and tattered and probably wasn't much use because, well, didn't just have the resources to do it. Couldn't go down to the chandlery and buy a new one, right? There was no carbon fiber to replace it. So they didn't just make do with what they had. They appreciated, they valued and respected it. Waste not, want not, they would tell us. And they would row out. Maybe it was a fish pot, maybe it was a hand line. Maybe they had to dive. Maybe they did something and there was probably a lot of effort expended in order to get a meal, to come back home, clean the fish. Maybe some of it was, sold, bartered, exchanged for something else. Maybe it was just shared because everybody was in it together. But if say that meal was just for the family, maybe there was some ground provisions, and maybe it wasn't just for the Sunday meal, maybe it was midweek, and they ate together and they gave thanks and they were grateful. Now you fast forward to the 70s, the 80s, and even 90s and today. What was probably a very peaceful, law-abiding civil society, not because there were a lot of laws or even police, probably because there weren't any. They understood the importance of working together. Sure, there were things that transpired in the society that offended, the sensibilities of some, but the society responded in a way we might think today that is barbaric. We hear about the disappeared, in other countries because of political atrocities. But maybe the society found ways to sanction those who, perhaps didn't conform to the norms. But be that as it may, we can judge, but we weren't there and we don't necessarily know, so therefore we can only speculate and best leave it to be. But that society was one that was loving and kind and understanding and accommodating. And quickly was probably found itself, with values that were being superimposed. They were displaced. They no longer had, the ability to fend for themselves and to immediately had to transition from subsistence living to competing with the people that didn't necessarily have the same value system, respect, or cultural sensitivity. Now, those things that we see in other parts of the world where people are complaining, even today, whether it's the UK or other parts of Europe, whether it's in North America or even in the Caribbean, about people coming in and, maybe to some extent, causing a little bit of disquiet in the communities. When those people in those countries say those things, it's seen in a different light. When they're echoed here and questioned, maybe for some reason we allow us to talk about people being, xenophobic, or people, feeling as if they're entitled. When in fact, the opposite is true. There are some who would come and, thankfully, have made an indelible impression, have left a lasting contribution, and are continuing to love, support, and make this place better. Whether they've been here for 10 years or even in the first 10 minutes, they realize this is home and they got ready to work. Maybe it's 30 and 40 years hence. And it's because we're coming together, and we must and we should. But are we going to? Well, here's one of our listeners who said, we please know that we can change and come together, and it's happening. And I think it is. It's not that we are necessarily, blind to what is happening around the world or even here. It's not that necessarily that we are so, so taken with the stars and the clouds that we can't see the realities. That people are struggling. People are still very much feeling everything, not just what is transpiring now, but also the fact that they're fearful of what is yet to come. And whenever the question is asked or comment is uttered, if it doesn't seem to be part of the manufacturer's script, well, they're being ostracized, maligned, castigated, maybe labeled as conspiracy theorists. Now, some of us are not as responsible in our commentary. Some of us are speaking from, a bit of emotion and not necessarily grounded in it. But that could be because we're conflicted and confused, partly because of the information. Now, is that misinformation, disinformation, propaganda, or the like? But in absence of meaningful, respectable, responsible dialogue and information, what do you expect? Let's go to our phones. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling. Good afternoon. Let me try it in Spanish. Buenas tardes, señor. ¿Qué tal, amigo? No, one day I'll be as fluent as I would like to be. But the phone lines are open if you want to call and share your thoughts with us. It's 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. If we are in a society that is supposed to be a healthy democracy, where people should be able to freely and publicly express themselves. Maybe the only proviso would be that you do so responsibly, respectfully. There are those of us, maybe even ourselves, who may be sort of constrained when we're talking. We may find it difficult not to have an expletive-laden, sort of comment. But we still need to be respectful that others may have a dissenting view. No, not just because it's the view being sung in unison in a loud chorus of all that is necessarily right. Majority doesn't have to be right. Equally, the individual who's the sole commentator doesn't have to be wrong either. But it isn't who is saying it or when it's being said, but what is being said, and we are ignoring it. Take, for instance, the caller earlier that asked the question relative to sort of inference being price controls. There are many, whether it's because it's the society from which they come from, maybe it's the norm that they know, maybe it's the academic study. Now, do we think, let me ask the question, that a government should impose some sort of price controls? Maybe milk and bread or other food things can't and shouldn't be any more than this. And how is that price arrived at? We see it with minimum wage relative to labor. What about rents and the like? And if we go that far, well, what about a bank and any lending institution? Should there be price controls on how much interest they can charge? And what is that? No more than 10% or no more than 1%. What about the fees? Now, having regulations and laws in place is one thing, but are they enforced? And are those things sufficiently reasonable? And then what is that by definition? And how do we apply it across the board? Now, there is no question that if you don't have enough disposable income, that money after you sort of get paid and you can go and pay your bills, there are challenges. You may question what's the point of working. Now, are we questioning also, is there, whether deliberate or inadvertent, or whether it's a concerted effort to displace a certain segment of a society, if there is no employment in that area, what will those people do? Many have talked about, as jobs become less and less, people are unemployed, crime may increase. Well, the Cayman context of way back when, it's a different time, we didn't have that. The context today, we may just have that. Not only because there are more people from different places, but we have now found ourselves with more expenses and obligations. Ask yourself, if you were living in a house where there was no mortgage, you didn't have to worry about paying rent, so that was all yours. And let's say something happened and you had no electricity and no running water. That does not sound like the place that you want to live in, but if you're out of a job and at the end of the day you didn't have to be worried about foreclosure because you didn't pay your mortgage, or being evicted because you can't afford to pay your rent, and you may not have had the running water and electricity and all the other things that you were accustomed to, probably would feel, and understandably so, pretty bad. But at least you had a safe place to stay and a roof covered your head so you could sleep. Now, if you were in a position where all that transpired, but you were facing eviction, that would make it a little bit harder, wouldn't it? Let's pause and take a break. When we come back, more Talk Today.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm April Cummings. Plans for a 10-story hotel on Goring Avenue are on tomorrow's agenda of the Central Planning Authority. The board will hear an application under HPW Investments for the hotel, which includes pools, a propane generator, and underground storage tanks. A number of government entities, including Department of Environment and Department of Tourism, have noted requests for more information before making a full recommendation to the board. The meeting will be held at the Government Administration Building at 11. In international headlines, headlines. More than 70% of Americans aged 30 or older have received at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine, even as U.S. President Joe Biden is set to fall short of reaching his goal of giving a shot to the same percentage of all American adults by Independence Day. The Biden administration is releasing the new data today, showing it expects to reach 70% of Americans aged 27 or older with at least one shot by the July 4th holiday. Deaths among Medicare patients in U.S. nursing homes soared by 32% last year, with two devastating spikes 8 months apart. The government watchdog report is the most comprehensive look yet at COVID-19 among its most vulnerable victims. Russian President Vladimir Putin today marked the 80th anniversary of the Nazi attack on the Soviet Union by hailing the country's World War II heroes and calling for efforts to strengthen European security. Those are your headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. I'm April Cummings.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Darby Bernard Tibbetts, MBE. Bernard Tibbetts has spent his life serving the people of Kimmerbrak. In his youth, he communicated with the island's ships by radio telephone, keeping seamen in touch with their families. He later became a wireless operator and was transferred to Cable and Wireless when it took over telecommunications in the Cayman Islands. In his 45 years working in communication, he undertook private study, enabling him in his spare time to do photo processing and repair the island's cars, trucks, radios, refrigerators, and air conditioners. He also established a family retail business. He served as president of the Kimmerbrak High School PTA, director of Kimmerbrak Power and Light Company, deacon of Stake Bay Baptist Church, trustee of Little Cayman Baptist Church, and member of the Brax Hospital Building and Development Committees. In 1983, he was honored by receiving the MBE directly from Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Mr. Bernard sings and plays music and has written a number of gospel songs and tracts, as well as a paper about life on Kimmerbrak before the modern era.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Kimmerbrak and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
The West Bay Family Fair has something for everyone.
Monday, July 5th, enjoy wholesome family fun with free admission to the inaugural West Bay Family Fair at the Ed Bush Stadium and West Bay Heritage Park. Bring your family and friends and learn how to make silver touch rope, blow a concord, or spin a gig. Local arts and crafts will be on sale, and vendors will offer up the best in traditional foods and treats for the kids. Kids of all ages will have their faces painted and participate in several sporting events with McGee's Adventure Park.
But wait, there's more.
Don't miss the early morning cycle race, the farmers market, live entertainment, awesome raffle prizes, and find out who will win the beautiful baby contest. Stay for the 2-mile fun run and walk and football tournament showcasing some of West Bay's legends. For more information, email noelw@candw.ky or call 916-2134. West Bay Family Fair, Monday, July 5th, Ed Bush Stadium Stadium starting at 7 a.m. This advert is brought to you by Williams Productions and Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions.
Talk today. Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. Just a quick preview. 1:30, our good friends from the Health Services Authority. When we can join us, we're going to talk about World Sickle Cell Day, and looking forward to the company of Dr. Lamsey Ebanks, Dr. Anna Matthews, and Nurse Joy Marin will join us. So it's always great to have that partnership. I've always believed that the true pillars, true value in a society is its education system and its healthcare system. Don't believe anybody can say that's a political statement. I think we can commend governments to date for their continued investment in both, of those sort of pillars. But maybe there's more that can be done by us as individuals, us as the private sort of / corporate sector, but us as governments. And maybe as we ask governments, to provide more services and we demand more of them, maybe we can find a way to make a greater sacrifice. Shift resources from the money to the personnel, to the training and investment into education and equipment and the like, but even allocating land for the construction, development, expansion of healthcare related facilities as well as education, and maybe even the approach as to how we teach and learn and deliver, healthcare. Maybe we understand the importance. Now, I'm open to anybody who willing to contribute or even contradict, my sort of premise, because that will only make it better if the view that they offer is indeed better. But think about it. If your society has all the gold and the diamonds and the oil and the natural resources and, whatever it is, but the populace isn't healthy and can't sort of, benefit from it by working, or they're not smart enough, intelligent enough, however you define that. I'm not talking just book smart. So they're not healthy and they're not capable. Then what's the point in our resource? It's probably going to be exploited. Not that they don't understand the value of these resources or are going to be taken advantage of, like we see in many places. Whether we go back, to the Crown and the allegations of history going into places that it is decimated by extracting from the locals, or we see the conquerors coming in and but we don't look at the conquered. We're not even talking about that. Maybe we think of people, quote unquote, foreign investors coming in and buying up lands for cheap and developing because they see a resource unrealized and untapped and perhaps unable to be fully developed by the local population. So those are the things that maybe we need to consider. Maybe when we look at other jurisdictions, probably examples that we can borrow. Maybe we're too late on Grand Cayman. Maybe we're too late in the Cayman Islands generally, but are we? We still have the beauty, the safety, the civility, the sanctity, the sense of a sobering and safe, stable society. And if it's not on Grand Cayman, well, at least on Cayman Brac, Little Cayman, do we say as a country that maybe the policies in that, again, as an example, politically as it may be charged to say this, well, the investor from overseas can only develop a certain sector, maybe in the commercial sector, as we were reminded of in other jurisdictions. I was told just last evening from a very loved and dear and respected, family member. Now, maybe if it's residential in excess of 2 million. The local populace can probably develop in that area. But what about other things? We need to think not just today in 10 years from today, but maybe 100 years. Maybe we need to start thinking that since we have, in our minds at least, 500 years or so in existence, why don't we think about 500 years from today? Not 5 minutes, not one election cycle, not even 5 months, not even 50 years. But as many of us would say, we are too short-sighted and too willing to accept, today at the expense of tomorrow. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. Now, go back to the growing discord and division that we're seeing around the place. We probably still to this day feel a sense of great emotion, upset, hurt, almost bewilderment. And when we look back to the incidents within the U.S. relative to the way police responded to certain sectors of the community, and they heavily policed, sort of neighborhoods where seemingly there's more crime. There's more crime in there. Why is the police in there? It's because there's increased police attention that they're finding more crime. And the response of police to, an incident, the death of Mr. Floyd, for instance, one of countless, numbers of the communities across the U.S. But it's not just the U.S., it's other places. And how are we in Cayman responsive and helpful in our policing so that we are working together? I think the father of modern policing, we're told in the UK, Sir Robert Peel, reminds us of the need for the police to be the community and for the community to be the police, and they work together respectfully and responsibly. It isn't that as a parent your child fears you, so afraid that necessarily means respect. Now, as the parent, you need to be responsible and respectable and respectful to set an example. Well, let's extend that to everything, and let's have a healthy partnership. But if we are acting as a people, ignoring our traffic laws, for instance, now, what do you think would happen? But what if we are people in authority, the police officer in a police uniform in a police car, very, very visible? If it's not, using indicators, stopping at stop signs, we may look at that and condemn. Doesn't mean that failure to set a good example is any different than the politician or the pastor or the school principal or the person in some office that we would, in our minds, think to be, a respectable position, should be a respectable person. We are human, and our behaviors sometimes, indicate that, like all humans, we're subject to failure and shortcomings. But let's not condemn, certainly not condone those acts. But let's not condemn, let's draw alongside and serve as other examples to encourage. Because there are times when we fail to do what we know we should do, and sometimes we just overwhelm. Well, we're quick to judge. Hey, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or 1-800-534-8255, 1-800-534-8255, or you can dial us at 949-8037 or 949-6990, and of course WhatsApp 925-3261. It's a Tuesday, and the summer is coming on, hard and fast, as they say. Schools are nearing, if not already, out for the summer. Parents are, probably for many, would have already had summer plans to take a jaunt somewhere, either back to their country of birth, maybe, a summer house somewhere, or taking the children off on some vacation. And for some of us, that may still be what we will be able to do. For others, well, we can't, and for those who can, may choose not to. But we have a beautiful place here, whether we're going to be on Grand Cayman or, honestly, rediscover the beauty of this country, whether you're on the eastern side or otherwise, whether you go up to Le Cayman or Cayman Brac. But let's look at it with a renewed sense of respect and appreciation. And for those who are in the hotels and condos and the restaurants and the businesses from whom, we as the customers, let the employees and owners appreciate that business, but maybe be reminded that, but for sort of the level of restrictions that are in place almost prohibiting or certainly heavily limiting people's ability to travel, we may not have had this level of, sort of local commerce. So let's not take it for granted and try to extort as much as we can from it, but let's use it as an example to propel us forward, that if we can keep the money into the economy, if we can find ways to expand our market, not just the visitor market, but the actual, home-based market. And then as we go to our phones, us as customers, be appreciative that we have this resource, and let's enjoy it responsibly and respectfully, and with a degree of consideration that someone is going to come after to stay in a hotel room, to drive that rent-a-car, to eat in that restaurant, and interact with the staff. So let's not be insolent. Let's be appreciative. Let's be respectful. Let's be willing that, hey, you know what? Wouldn't mind come back here again, and the staff would be happy to see us. Let's go to the phones. Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, Dwayne. Peter Schmidt here.
If you don't mind me saying, publicly, you crossed my mind like 3 times, and I feel bad that I never even called you. It was all in good thoughts, so I hope you don't feel bad about that.
I know. I must have been tired from something, so it was crossing your mind that was so stressful.
You know what? But I It
was such a big hill, that mind. So no wonder I got kind of worn out.
Sometimes the thoughts that ruminate within my mind. But good to hear from you, man. How are you today, sir?
I'm not bad, thank you. I was harvesting breadfruit here until a little while ago, and it's amazing how that tree is producing. I know earlier in the year when we had those heavy winds, and stuff, a lot of small breadfruit got, the wind brought them down, and I know I threw over 100 of them away, and yet today was kind of my second harvest, and it was over 40 breadfruit that were fit enough to satisfy Golden Age and the Pines.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It's just I'm always happy to give it to them because it's these seasonal things. When they are coming fit, everyone has them. So I wouldn't even bother to try and sell them or anything like that. I'll just give them away and feel good about it. But I was calling earlier. You were kind of plowing the field there in different directions today, try and get some traction. And
so in seed, no?
I was just trying to raise a topic about development.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we know that there has been a lot of development recently and currently. A lot of that is going on in some circles. It's been kind of, lamented about, and there seem to be some, I should say more than some, concern about the amount of development that is going on. But I was thinking about the fact that this development with the importation of the construction materials, must be a significant component of the government revenue. Mm. And I'm wondering if we were to reach, let's say we decided as a people, we decided that we reached saturation point, and we now had what was often said to be a self-sustaining society in terms of keeping the public occupied or engaged and employed in servicing the existing society, and we would stop building more and new, and that the revenue, the big bulk of revenue that we get from importing building materials would fall away. What could we replace it with? Because it is not likely that our cost, our expenses would decline simply because we stop developing.
Mm-hmm.
So I am, it's just something to think about, because the revenue sources that we have, when I say we, it is we because we are the government. The government itself doesn't have any money. All the government gets comes from us.
Mm-hmm.
To us, and so for all the government programs to run, and if you hear the scary numbers from the social services department, that doesn't seem to be declining. It seems to be increasing, and you wonder how we are going to fund that should any more components of our economy go on a slowdown or cease to bring in the kind of revenue that we have grown accustomed to.
Mm-hmm. But as I listen, though, I'm inclined to wonder to what extent, and if we could, be certainly I want to be guided by, by not just your comments, but maybe the insight and the expertise that I place in you. But I'm wondering to what extent, in the Cayman context, the wider population, not the loud public pundits that we hear, not even the puppet masters that we believe lie behind the scenes and pull the strings of the politicians. Us, as the general populace, the voters, are we sitting down on our hands and expecting the government to do everything and anything? That all of the knowledge and all of the wisdom and all of the action should emanate from sort of some glass house or others? I mean, aren't we ourselves willing to rally together?
Well, I hear you, and I share your concern.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what is happening today, or what has been happening over the last, let's say, 20 years, is the fact that we have been saturated with American-style television, that every time something goes wrong, we think we can sue someone,
mm-hmm.
and government is responsible for everything. We're taxpayers, and of course we are taxpayers, but I don't think our system of governance is running the country, more so than even governance,
mm-hmm.
is built on the premise that let's say a Scandinavian premise where we pay 85% of our income in taxes, and we have cradle-to-grave social services that take care of our education, our health, and our well-being, and everything like that. I don't think the spirit of the Caymanian is fits that mold. I think from history, and I would say that I have experienced a certain amount of that independence that Caymanians felt more so in earlier years than now, that people were self-sufficient. They did not look, maybe they looked for a neighbor to give him a hand with a heavy project. I know some of my former colleagues, one of them in particular said, you would have some friends come by on the weekend, and they would do some work on a house that he was building for himself. But it wasn't any reliance on government entities per se, and I think that has changed.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people think that government is now responsible to see that they are well kept and fed, and of course I think that's a fallacy. I have always considered myself lucky in the timing at which I arrived. My makeup, my personal style of living seemed to fit in well with the way the society was functioning when I arrived.
Right.
And
and thank you. As I listen to you, right, immediately I go back to your reference to the braided fruits, your willingness to share them with not just any and everybody, but you were specific and maybe initially looking at a particular sector of a society that could potentially benefit more or may be in need of and may not have the resources to go to Foster's or to Kirk's or Hurley's or any of the other supermarkets and what have you, right? But the question is, go back to what you just said, the 70s, 60s, 50s, and probably even yesterday, there's still some of us who subscribe to that notion of, helping out each other, right? Share and share alike was a mantra that I think was subscribed to by many of us in our community. Now it's the notion that he who has the gun, not even the gold anymore, makes the rule. We've somehow reinterpreted the golden rule, right? Mm-hmm. And we look at the word socialism now. For those who may have studied whether economics or some other science, social otherwise, may appreciate that there is merit to it, but we've been misguided, misled, and misinformed. Now we talk about American television. Maybe that's the problem. We look at too much of television. But what about those of us that are from the UK or from the Caribbean or other parts of North America or other places? We see all kind of nonsense over there. We hear all kind of, stuff coming from the, what we call them, the newscasters, the politicians, the wider society, and we adapt, and somehow, become enamored with this foolishness and no longer thinking about what strengths are already in our society, what would strengthen our society. And the minute you have an old appliance or fruit on your trees and you offer that to someone, two things probably happen, right? One, people will say, well, you could sell that and make $1. Or, I don't want your old stuff. I can afford to buy it myself, even if they can or can't. So, we are not advancing as a people. We're not sensible nor sensitive.
Well, there is certainly a lot of... you're talking about the reasonable and unreasonable. I think what has become more or less the norm is that whatever suits you as an individual today, maybe I might add that, because tomorrow might be changed, but whatever suits you today is you would classify as reasonable. And anything that requires something which you are not exactly interested in doing or providing or anything is then called unreasonable. And I think, again, that, it's just like you said, we have seen too many unrealistic examples, and primarily on television. Some of it in the entertainment sector, because even some of the things we accept as news are in fact entertainment and very scarce on fact, and a lot of innuendo and hypothesizing, and so if it actually is the same with even with some of the printed matters, where I know a lot of people draw wrong conclusions because they are not willing to read an entire piece with multiple paragraphs. They will look at a picture and at a headline which is constructed to attract viewers, or if it is on the electronic media, to click on it, and then they form their opinion on that, and it influences their behavior. And I'm afraid in that regard, we have become very like some sectors in North America, I'm afraid to say. I hate to say it, but I think it is a fair description.
Well, I think that unfortunately we are somehow, I use the word conflating. Another word comes to mind, but let's use that. That may be a little bit, more palatable.
Yeah.
So much of what we have sort of accustomed to, or the historical, economic, political context of the UK and the US, right? Take our politics, for instance. It would appear that there are those who have the perception that constitutionally we have a melding of the two. So the politicians get elected, and there are those who believe that when they come in, they should be able to change out their top civil service personnel to suit the political mindset, which would be in keeping with the US mantra, seemingly, but goes against the UK's model that the civil service continues as the technocrats to assist in a very professional, impartial, objective way to ensure that the government of the day is able to effectively and efficiently, get its agenda through, right? Now, maybe the same with the media and the like, but look at our policing. We see the urban commandos in the US, heavily armored police officers that look almost like military, with some of the military style equipment, from the guns to the cars and I don't know what vehicles they even call them these days, right? And the gear that they wear, from their shields and what have you. And we wonder to what extent and at what point will that same sort of approach and presence be on our streets in Cayman, right? Go back to what we think exists in Europe and other parts of the world, where even in the UK gradually is changing, but the police officer is, properly attired, very pleasant, very, very professional, trained, equipped, and resourced, and is walking the streets and knows, how to interact with the people. They've got the skill sets from the psychological profile to their mannerisms to the investigative skills and the like. And we're wondering, what is going to happen, right?
Well, there is. I want to get off pretty soon, but let me say this: a lot has to do globally. I would almost say, or at least in the Western Hemisphere, has to do with immigration, because the entities that were formed, whether it is the social services, to the law enforcement, to the very laws of the country, are designed to serve the homogeneous, the native population. And as that has changed, as we have had global migration, and we certainly have experienced our share here, we may not look at them, at the people that have come here as migrants in the same way you would look at the armada that's walking from Africa to Europe. But at the end, it is the same thing. We have a lot of people from other nations, including myself, of course, coming to this small country, and I think the wheels of justice are said to turn slowly. Well, sometimes the wheels of government also turn slowly, and sometimes we are not quick enough in our response, and then when we do respond to a new situation, then we may have overreached to an extent.
Right.
Now, in the United States, I cannot address what's happening in the United States because I think I might even fail to actually understand what's going on there. I see it, and I have my feelings about it, but I'm not sure I understand everything that is contributing to the situation as it is there. It seems like a country in upheaval. But when it comes to Cayman, we also, we've talked about the adaptation of foreign models, and we have seen that in our crime statistics reflected. To some extent, you have seen gun crime, which was rarely heard of 20 years or 30 years ago or 40 years ago, and now it is. We're no longer sure it makes the headline each time it happens. And the same thing goes with stabbings. In other words, violent crimes. We have sectors of the island which come to life after sunset, and go all night to the point to where people will avoid certain areas of our island at certain times of the day.
It is unfortunate, and I certainly always welcome not just your contribution, but your willingness to, when you can, to pick up and keep my company so that we can engender greater conversation. But as we go into the break, obviously you can't have gun crime without guns, right? But what is even perhaps more alarming is the willingness with which our society is willing to avoid those places, ignore these things that are transpiring in the society, and accept for some reason that this is the price we pay for, presumably, the word that we use, progress. Now, if we're going to have a society where, as you shared, we're going to avoid certain places at certain times of the day or the night because after dark or whatever it is, we really need to ask ourselves, when that place becomes a larger place or a place next door to our place, are we going to wait until then to acknowledge it and to address it? And when we do, what is our response? Taking the stage out. Sir?
I don't quite agree that we are willing to avoid those places. We feel powerless to do otherwise. Because we would of course welcome a robust campaign not to let those areas become enclaves of a culture which Caymanians do not want to accept. The problem is some young Caymanians are taken in by that kind of culture. It plays out on the roadways today, you know, and in almost every aspect of our society. Anyway, perhaps more material for another day. We need to move on.
Yeah, thank you. And man, I'm grateful, and I'm sure the listeners have benefited equally. Let's pause and take a short break. Rejoin us though. We'll talk about, sickle cell. We have Dr. Anna Matthews, Dr. Chilla Lamsi Banks, together with Nurse Joy Marion, join us. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
At Subway, we know a meal isn't quite complete without a side, and that's why we're introducing waffle fries. Subway's waffle fries are oven-baked softness with extra crispy edge, giving a satisfying taste to be enjoyed as is or in any of Subway's dipping sauces. Order waffle fries as a side item for $2 or make it a meal deal. Subway, eat fresh.
Cybercrime happens online or through the technology we use every day. Anyone can be a victim of cybercrime, whether you are a young person being bullied or harassed online, or an older person or business who's been scammed out of money or personal data. Cybercrime is an issue that touches all of us. The Cayman Islands government has therefore created an online resource to help keep you cyber safe in an ever-changing world.
In online situations, it is better to be cyber safe than sorry. Learn now to protect yourself against cybercrime. Visit gov.ky/cybersafe.
For the record. For information that matters to you, the people. Hear from the government, the opposition, independents, and other experts on issues and solutions that affect you. For the record. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, tune into 89.9 and 93.9 FM from 7:30 to 9 a.m. for Cayman's new Straight Talk morning show. For the record.
I invite you to join me for the record. You are invited to be a part of this interesting and informative show. Embrace the opportunity to dialogue with your legislators, policymakers, and those charged with policy implementation.
For the record. Brought to you by Coca-Cola. Available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga Distributors.
Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola.
The 7 a.m. news Monday through Friday is proudly sponsored by CG Britke Insurance, Health, Pensions, Life, where people come first.
Do you know the signs that your child may be vaping? Increased thirst, desire for flavor, nosebleeds, acne, cutting back on caffeine, pneumonia, finding unfamiliar USB drives, battery chargers, or spare parts. It's important to talk to your teen about this new risky trend. For families with a history of addiction, your child may be at an even higher risk of dependence from vaping products. As the popularity of vaping continues to rise, so does your child's risk. Watch for signs. This message was brought to you by the National Drug Council and Radio Cayman.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan. We're here for you. Are you aware of the performance of your pension plan? The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan provides quarterly fund fact sheets for our members to stay informed with the plan's performance. For the year ended 30th of April, 2021, the various life cycle funds have provided returns between 10.5% and 43.2%. And our all-in expense ratio for year ended 30th of June, 2020 is currently the lowest it's ever been. 0.72%. Visit chamberpension.ky to review our fund fact sheets. You can see the performance as far back as 10 years. Remember that pensions are a longer-term investment strategy. Focus on the long term rather than the short-term returns. The Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce Pension Plan continues to perform for you.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you very much for joining us. And sometimes you may not get the paycheck that you like, but when you have a job that is so rewarding and you work with people that are so dedicated and competent, and then you have guests like I have every day, and especially for this segment, that educate and inform you, that allow you to look at life with a renewed sense of love, man, you know what? The reward is better than the paycheck. So I'm honored to welcome Dr. Anna Matthews together with Nurse Joy Marion and Dr. Sheila, make sure it's Lamsey Ebanks. I just like it, boy. A respiratory?
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of? No, respirate first.
Okay.
That's right.
See, you try again. Now that I'm here, yes. Like how you have to fly the flag of the country you're in as a sailor. So,
thank you, and your husband would certainly appreciate that. He comes from a good stock of seafarers and our maritime heritage. And I think that's what unites us as a people, that love, but also that willingness to share. And I think as we look at something like sickle cell disorder, not just celebrating World Sickle Cell Day, but the notion that within our communities we have such an invaluable resource through our healthcare professionals like you, through the resources that it is the healthcare facilities that we have, private and public, but a populace that is willing to be receptive to education, take that and be informed and respond in a way that helps us. It's a society of strength. So,
and
respect.
The Caribbean is we are the sickle cell. We're the knowledge base for sickle cell. Jamaica is the authority on sickle cell worldwide. The Caribbean, actually.
Yeah, man. And we need to harness that, and we gotta stop being divided and allowing ourselves to be divided. I mean, I like differences, right? But difference can strengthen us. I mean, nothing like a good piece of breadfruit. Anyway, let me eat that first.
And I've had a lot of that this year in Cayman. Wow. And I eat real fresh food till I'm about to.
You know what? I gotta be careful because somehow something I might say might get me in trouble. Let me behave.
Okay.
All right. But not too much, though. So, what is, for those who may not be appreciative, we also want to know the prevalence, but what is sickle cell disease? And who would want to help us? I always defer to the lady in red, but
Well, I don't want to hog the show, but I'll just say sickle cell disease is a condition that is inherited, and it's caused by a mutation or a defect or a change in one of your genes. That's what it is.
That's what it is.
And the thing is that that little change have long-lasting consequences, because that change causes the hemoglobin that is carried around in the red blood cells to be different. And because it's different, the red blood cells are not as flexible and pliable, and so they can't get through all those little small spaces, those small vessels. So guess what happened? In fact, they have a very stiff and a very abnormal shape, a sickle shape, hence you get sickle cell disease. So what it does, they don't get through the vessels, so they and because they are abnormally shaped, they get destroyed. So we end up with less red blood cells than we should have. They also obstruct the small vessels. and that lead to one of the hallmarks of this condition, which is pain. Because when tissues don't get enough oxygen and not getting enough oxygen, you feel pain, right? And of course, there are other things that which my esteemed colleagues will tell you, that can be the result. Pain, strokes, it can affect it does affect every organ of the body because the blood goes everywhere, right? And just to make a little this definition, really, we have sickle cell disease, which involve all of these sickle cell cases, and we also have sickle cell anemia. There's a subtle difference. Sickle cell anemia is what we refer to when we have the defect in a particular, in one particular protein that is made by this gene, and that causes what we call sickle cell anemia, where you end up with a lot of anemia. But you can have that, and that occurs when you inherit both of these abnormal genes from both parents. Of course, you have other variants of that where you have one gene from a parent and another type of abnormal hemoglobin from another parent. But you do end up sickling, so you do have sickle cell disease.
So sickle cell anemia and sickle cell trait, is that the same?
No.
I didn't think so, but I want clarity.
You have the sickle cell disease, which is the one where, because it is inherited, that you got both genes from your parents. You get one gene from your mother and one gene from your father for everything. If both of your parents have a sickle gene, then there's a chance that you can get that sickle gene from your parent. But if your parents have a trait, remember, they would have one sickle gene and one normal gene. So those are the traits. So because it is what we call recessive, meaning it's not dominant. So you can have the trait and not have any symptoms and not know that you have it because you have that other normal gene from your parent. But when they go to have children with somebody else that has a trait, then there's a chance, 1 in 25 for each pregnancy. I have to make that clear because I had somebody had 4 babies and hoped that one would not have, and was very upset when all 4 had sickle cell. So
25%.
25%. So
that's a probability, a chance.
For each pregnancy. Not overall, not for the life of your marriage. It is for you, or for every child that you have.
For some people,
each pregnancy. So if you have 2 parents and they both have the traits, so they have no symptoms because they have the good gene, but then your body picks which one it's going to give up to make the egg and stuff, and then so if the 2 that meet have the trait, then you end up with sickle cell. So that's where it is. That's why it's genetically inherited and it's recessive. So it's important. I see it in children, so they don't think about later on having children. But I always try to make sure the parents are aware that when it's time for marriage and it's time for babies, I know you don't want to think about your baby having babies because that's not...
Oh, your parents having sex?
Yeah, that never happened. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Nurse...
So it's important to know.
Nurse Joy will tell you more about all that she does. We do, led by her, does re-screening, whatever. And you might wonder, why bother? But remember, too, that you can have a normal hemoglobin, like both... in other words, you don't have to have the trait to have a child who have the trait. Because if you marry somebody that has the trait, you can have that person carrying that gene without knowing. And then when they meet with somebody else who has it, there's a probability now of being fully blown.
Okay.
And we're so lucky here that we screen, because like I'm from Trinidad, and we have large hematology clinics with lots of sicklers, and we're not lucky enough to have the newborn screening. So a lot of the times it's pain would be the first symptom that you know the child has sickle cell disease. At 3-4 months, it's pain and swelling in the hands, and you figure it out. And we are very fortunate that we have our screening that's being done by Nurse Joy and Public Health for so many years, so that you're aware of it, so we can put all these preventative things in place to help the children with sickle cell grow into adults, because we've had a lot of new medications and new treatments available in the last 25 years for sickle cell.
I think this is where I'll just this is not really part of the discussion, but just have to say kudos to our public health department. Because the amount of, I don't think people realize the good work that this particular part of the health system is doing, that is keeping us all safe and happy.
Wow.
Just case in point, COVID. But then we have done newborn screening, there's immunization, we're almost, 90, I think over 90% covered and what have you. Yeah. So in the quiet, the public health department is really doing
I'm glad that
work.
You share that, because in a sense, not for validation, but I said it outset, and I'll say this until someone that I think is the most respected and respectable tells me that's wrong. In my mind, in every society, the healthcare system, the education system are your pillars. And the resources that governments to date have committed to both, we probably don't appreciate it, but you just share in the background these things to go on. We don't know, because it's not affecting us. Unfortunately, it's only when something affects us directly that we become aware of, unless we're deliberately involved in some other way, right? But then, if I may then ask, when we look at the screening, we'll come back to that in a second, the sickle cell disease and the sickle cell trait, just for clarity and absolute clarity. For the disease, if in absence of screening, at what age? You said 3 months. That would probably be present very early.
Because you have you're born with it. It's
right.
genetics. You're born with it. But what happens is you have different kinds of hemoglobin as you develop from birth. So there's something called fetal hemoglobin, which keeps the babies from having, so their hemoglobin doesn't do the sickle. Fetal hemoglobin does not sickle and is actually found to be preventative of sickling. So it not only does it not sickle, it prevents the sickle ones from sickling. But by 2 to 3 months, they no longer have the fetal hemoglobin because they're not fetuses anymore, and that's when they start to manifest. So that would be the main. So back in the days, and from other parts of the world that are not as fortunate as us, one of the first symptoms would just be pain in a child, and you don't have you have to figure it out. And we are lucky that we are able to tell parents, and they're aware of it. It's in the patient's notes. Nurse Joy does a wonderful job calling, having discussions and counseling them. Your child has the trait, so you're informed if your child has the trait or the disease.
Okay, and the reason I'm asking, because sometimes we think like many things it only manifest itself later on, even though we get. But if there wasn't screening with the sickle cell disease, you wouldn't know early.
I kind of think where you're going.
Yeah.
If there wasn't screening, you wouldn't know till you manifest. And the thing about sickle cell disease that makes it unique, everybody that has sickle cell disease has what we call HBSS, or has 2 sickle chromosomes.
Yeah.
But not everybody would have manifestations. So there are children that have sickle cell disease and have never had a painful crisis. I think they say it's 30% of adults who've never had a painful crisis.
Can you say
30%. Well, this world population.
Sorry.
Somebody
will get that.
Anyway, 30% of the population, the sickle cell population, has never had a severe painful crisis requiring hospitalization, and 1% has severe crisis, like more than 6 times a year within their lifetime. So just because you have the disease doesn't mean you're going to get all of the complications, if any at all. It's just, and we have not found, they've done a lot of research to try to identify the children or the persons at risk to have increased disease manifestation, but we haven't been able to do that.
I think one of the things that they say, you have some people who have this inherited prolongation, I should have, that's the right word, of this fetal hemoglobin. And when you have a lot of that there, it tends to keep you pretty well, because there is history of people, like you have some people living up in the hills in Jamaica, some old people who have never had a crisis, and they're sicklers, right? And
they make more fetal hemoglobin.
And then back to the importance and the benefit of screening. Okay, so you're screening for sickle cell disease, right? But you're also screening, and you'll pick up the trait. And the thing is, people think that, well, the trait, although it is a relatively normal variant, I mean, you can go through life pretty normally, but then it has its downfalls and its pitfalls and its complications, and that's what we find, that you find that they're at risk for certain conditions like sudden death from if they become overheated, is what they call it, overheated or dehydrated. And that's the reason why where athletes are concerned and people who are in boot camp, they have to do screening to make sure, because they are at risk. And also there are other little conditions that where you can get a kind of sickling under certain conditions, you know, and you mentioned about the spleen and all that. If you go in you know, if you go up in the mountain top where the pressure is low and that type of thing, you know, so they're so although they're usually normal, there are things that can happen, and it's important to know that this child has a trait, right? In case this happens, if you have blood in the urine or something, because they're also at risk for a very, very rare cancer that occurs only in sicklers, and I've actually seen a case.
Yeah, you told us at one time. So from the perspective of screening, we've been screening Nurse Joy for a while now, but then, well, that's what I was asking earlier, the notion of people who are born for. How long have you been screening?
Okay, we started doing what's called cord blood hemoglobin electrophoresis in 1997.
Cord blood hemoglobin electrophoresis.
Right.
Oh, he said that today.
And then in 2002, we went over to this PerkinElmer Genetics newborn screening, where instead of doing the cord blood, they do a little heel prick when the baby is 2 days old, and that then is put on specialized blotting paper. It's sent overseas, and we get the results back. And it covers not just sickle, but it does cover more than 50 different disorders. But sickle is there for that. So.
And there's a lot of sickle traits going on. Just a little a bit of epidemiology. Studies from 2015 has shown that there were 4.4 million people in the world who have sickle cell disease, and of that, 43 million have the trait.
And that's just those that have been tested.
Those are
there are a lot of countries that still don't screen and still are unaware. And those are the countries that have larger birth rates.
Yes.
Are the ones that don't necessarily screen at birth.
And of course, you might think, so, well, it's people used to say it's for people from the tropics or the subtropics that get it. But because of migration and, you know, everybody's everywhere, all over the world, and people will get together. It's everywhere.
That's happening.
You see?
Love knows no bounds.
In fact, it is now rivaling things like cystic fibrosis as the number one genetic disorder in some of the European countries.
Wow.
And you know that cystic fibrosis.
I think this is where I welcome this partnership with health services, but also you know, taking time out of your day as practicing professionals to get our public to appreciate that this discussion isn't just about them or this or that. It's us. And the trait of one person who's married to someone else who isn't, you know, with a disease or a trait. What's the probability? Knowing what we can do, knowing what we should do, improves the...
So one of the things I'm going to say, this is my last saying because I don't want to hog this this conference.
She said all the time.
That World Sickle Cell Day is celebrated every year.
Yes,
from United Nations decided to celebrate just to bring awareness to nations and internationally about this condition, because it is a serious condition. It's a genetic disorder. Right? And up until now, I think now they're coming on with some kind of cure, if possible. The bone marrow transplant, which is all the way there.
Joy and I were discussing it. It's not I don't think it's necessarily a cure, because you will no longer have sickle cell disease, but you would be at risk of rejecting your transplant.
Okay.
So you go off into another, so you now will still be on medications for a while in your life in order for you not to reject that transplant. So you go from being a sickle cell patient to being a post-transplant patient, which is another heading as well. So I think it's a bit of a fallacy to tell, you know, it's
not really cure. But
it's not really cure, but if they look in your blood, they won't see it. But you still at risk. There's an exchange for it.
So our community care involves screening, right? immunization, of course, and prevention.
All right.
And I close my case. I leave it to my all esteemed
you submit
colleagues.
to rest. All right, let's.
I yield.
I yield my time to Nurse Joy. Let's take a quick break after the news headlines. Let's continue. Nurse Joy, you jump in and we'll start with you the next round. Ding, ding, ding. All right, stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm April Cummings. The Health Services Authority quarantines an undisclosed number of staff after potential exposure to a highly symptomatic COVID-19 positive patient at the Cayman Islands Hospital. As we reported on Monday, a traveler near the end of their 14-day quarantine period has been taken to the critical care unit for symptoms of COVID-19 disease. Health officials said the individual was in stable condition. In international headlines, the U.S. government stepping up efforts to get younger Americans vaccinated for COVID-19 as concerns grow about the spread of a new variant that threatens to set the country back in the months ahead. The push is underway as the Delta variant, first identified in India, has come to represent more than 20% of coronavirus infections in the U.S. in the last 2 weeks. That according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That is double what it was when the CDC last reported on the variant's prevalence. The number of people stopped from buying guns through a U.S. background check system hit an all-time high of more than 300,000 last year, amid a surge of firearm sales, according to new records obtained by the group Everytown for Gun Safety. The FBI numbers provided to the Associated Press show the background checks blocked nearly twice as many gun sales in 2020 as the year before. About 42% of those denials were because the would-be buyers had felony convictions on their records. Palestinians and Jewish settlers hurled stones, chairs, and fireworks at each other overnight in a tense Jerusalem neighborhood where settler groups are trying to evict several Palestinian families. That, according to officials today, who said the threatened evictions fueled protests and clashes in the run-up to last month's 11-day Gaza war and pose a test for Israel's new governing coalition, which includes 3 pro-settler parties, but is hoping to sideline the Palestinian issue to avoid internal divisions. Those are your headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. I'm April Cummings.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
The 20th Annual Talent Exposition of the Arts is here.
Are you ready for some talent tonight?
Presented by the New Self-Help Community Foundation. Coming to the stage Sunday, July 25th at the Harkwell Theater. Don't miss. Awesome performances by Liana DaCosta, J.C. Patrick, Rico Rolando.
Yeah, she twerking off a band and I'm about to make a dance, yeah.
Radiance Dance Studio, Mariah Praise, Dream Chasers Cayman, James at Anglin and Son, SI, Center Point Dance Studio, and UCCI Dancers. Part of the proceeds from the Talent Exposition of the Arts go to support the John Gray High School Music Department. Prepaid tickets at Funky Tangs and Winners Circle Sports. $10 or $15 at the gate. The 2021 Talent Exposition of the Arts. Sunday, July 25th at the Harkwell Theater. Gates open at 5:30 p.m. Show starts at 6:30. Get your tickets today. The Cayman Islands government and Celebrate Cayman invite you to the official renaming of sections of Harbor Drive on the Georgetown waterfront to Seafarers Way in honor of the outstanding contributions made by our island's seafarers.
The ceremony and reception will be held at the North Terminal, Georgetown on Friday, 25th June from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m.
Attendees are encouraged to dress in business attire or their Seafarers Association polos.
Hope to see you there, 10 a.m. Friday, June 25th at the North Terminal in Georgetown.
The Cayman National Cultural Foundation invites you to participate in an open dialogue about the writings of Roy Bawden, Caymanian historian, educator, and author. Public intellectual interrogating the Caymanian society takes place on June 24th and 25th at the Harkwell Theater. This free symposium will feature local and international speakers presenting their interpretations of Bawden's books and the issues he raises. Join us for exciting and enlightening discussions about Cayman's history, culture, economy, and politics. Visit artscayman.org for more information. Brought to you in partnership with the Committee for the Promotion of Research and Cayman Scholarship and sponsored by Radio Cayman.
Talk Today.
but I do have some questions.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us. And if I can say, to Miss Monique over at HSA, she's been an invaluable partner in helping us to facilitate this panel almost every week. So, Dr. Tanya Matthews, Nurse Joy Marion, and Dr. Lamsey Ebanks, Dr. Ebanks. The idea that we can take a topic like this and know that we have family and friends, co-workers, and people who, right now this is hitting home. Right? But then for a wider community to be sensitive and sensible, to be respectful with respect to how we discuss it, but understand the resource. So Nurse Joy, Dr. Matthews later a lot, supported by her colleague, but help us from the screening to all the other things. Give us a perspective.
Before she go on.
Yeah.
How many different nationalities you said was in
129 at last count.
You sure it was 140 and a half?
I feel
I was checking.
The last time I looked it up, it was 129 different nationalities, which is why not that it's on the topic, but that's why I encourage people to vaccinate.
And how many people have the trait? We don't know. How many of those 100 and how much nationalities have the trait? And how many of them socialize with everybody?
Social. I like that word. I used to say I was a social guy, but I'm going to say that no more. No more. So is there a vaccination?
So reformed socializing.
Hence screening.
Yeah.
And awareness.
So there is a vaccination. Before we jump in.
Okay. There's no vaccine. I mean, there are vaccines that are just sicklers are supposed to have certain vaccines, but the schedule are not taken over.
No, we're gonna let her talk.
Yes, we are.
She's happy for you.
She is.
Priceless.
She is.
Yes,
she is. We need to bubble wrap her at some point in time.
Could we clone her?
But you should have all your vaccines, and I always encourage people to get their kids vaccinated because it's 129 different nationalities. There are all these diseases coming from all over the world, literally, globalization, to make sure your child's vaccinated. But that's a whole other
we'll come back and talk about that now.
But in terms of sickle cell, they do have specific vaccines that we make sure they have for pneumococcal infections because
bacteria.
Because the easiest way to say it, your spleen is like the filter of your body, so it filters like you would have a filter for a fish tank, and because the sickle cells keep getting stuck in the filter, it destroys the filter, and so they don't have that ability anymore. So they are at risk for infections from bacteria that filter would catch. So we give them extra vaccinations, and then they are on antibiotics from the time they are about 2 months, they say, to start, till 5 years every day to protect them from these infections. So these are all the things that are so important in terms of the screening, bringing this forward, because you have to start this with these kids. They break the normal red blood cell life is 120 days. With sicklers, it's down to like 30, 40 days, they say. So they break red blood cells down faster than we do. Hence, you get the yellowing of the eyes. And that's why we give them things like folic acid to help their bodies to be able to keep making these red blood cells faster than it should have to. So there are a lot of things that this screening program, I always say that sickle cell hair is the gold standard of screening. When you screen for something, you have to be able to do something about it. That's the whole, you learn that in med school. There's no point to, not no point, but you need to screen.
It's unethical to screen if you can't do anything
if you can't do anything about it. And so once we screen it, we find it. There's the child, there's interventions that makes, it made a big difference in terms of hair and what I see and how our children are managed. We are fortunate.
Yeah.
We know and we do.
Sickle cell is not diabetes. That everybody knows, and it's all around you. You look around, you find what's here. It's as important.
And it's a big Caribbean disease. It is.
Talking about that, in Cayman, known to public health, I have to say, we have 45 persons with sickle cell disease. And there are many different types. They say there's more than 400 different types of sickle cell. But we're talking about the four most, the four major ones. And for SS, we have like 18 persons with it. SC, 18. And then the S beta thal, 0, just 2 persons that we know about. And 7 with S beta plus for the total of 45.
But remember, this doesn't include the trait.
It's not
right. This is not
5% of the...
Right, 5.4% of the...
of births have the sickle cell trait. And just from off the top of my head, don't quote me, average, we have between 50 to 60 births a month at HSC. Yeah? So it's 5% of that, and there are other places that have births. Obviously, yes.
So are we... I think statistics and information that helps to inform public policy, helps to certainly deliver good health care. So all of the births that may take place either in other facilities in the country, for people to be screened is only at HSA, or will it be
Okay, there are 3 places where babies are routinely born in the Cayman Islands.
West Bay, Georgetown, Cameron.
Oh no! Sorry, those are the 3. Now I don't know which 3 you're talking about.
Yeah, you know the Cayman Islands Hospital, Faith Hospital, and also CTMH doctors. Yeah. And of those, all 3 of those do the newborn screening. So, yeah. Okay. And it's the PerkinElmer Genetics, which covers sickle, and it covers other things as well.
And I wonder to what extent those of us, for whatever reason, may have our children off island, wherever that is. Not Cayman Brac, but outside the country. And then will that information filter back to us?
Sometimes it does. I'm thinking of people that have gone to Florida or had their babies in Florida for whatever.
Yeah.
Off and on, we do get back a parent saying, this is the result that came back, and so on, and the doctor will say, and so we counsel them if it's a trait or something. So, yeah, but maybe
I don't think we would. Honestly, in my opinion, I don't think we get it that much. It's up to the parent if they come to the hospital and be like, "I had my baby born overseas. This is everything that they gave us." And if they come to clinic, we try to get those things. But a lot of the times, that's the one thing you can't find. I go through all the notes, you don't see it because they have to go back for an appointment for their results. It's not like you leave the hospital knowing.
Yes, in fact, the literature does say that lots of, quite a percentage of the persons who are even have newborn screening don't know the results until that child end up in a facility somewhere because they're not notified and they don't go back to find out.
Correct. Whereas we notify. Whereas the US, they don't call you to notify you. You have to call them.
And this is why I'm asked that question, because us as parents, this is a newborn. It's, even if our child is still within our care under the age of 18, let's ensure that we are proactive. We get information and we somehow, for me, make sure it's all in one docket at your primary care provider. And that is on us as parents to ensure that.
It is.
Right.
Well, that's a message you can put out there for us, Sterling, that let us know if you take a child abroad and you have information. Not only abroad, there are other facilities where people are taken, the people come back to us at HSA and what did you have? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It happens.
And as the doctor, they think, well, you should know because you sent me. But the state has this, and we're getting off topic, but there's privacy, and in terms of they need to give you permission to get their results, and a lot of people don't realize that, especially with children. It gets really. So I was telling them, if you go overseas, when you leave with all the documentation you can get from them. Make sure you have an email address, because a lot of these places now have portals. So make sure you have your portal information for your child, so we can go on and look at the results together.
Well, even here, if we're at one facility for some reason,
it does happen.
It happens.
So again, a little off topic, but centralized information.
Well, something that I do when we do the parent craft teaching at the HSA for the pregnant
and that is available.
And it is available, and it's free, and you can join anytime, which is wonderful because it's 9 weeks. You can, whenever you choose to, you can join, and if you get to the 9th week, you just pick up and do the 1, 2, or 3, And so in that, I do just one talk there, and I say to them that, it is important that they find out what the baby's result is. I said, the baby's going to be tested, And so I put the onus on you to find out the baby's result. If the person you're talking to doesn't know that, they can call maternity ward or call, CTMH doctors and get those.
Indeed. Well, when we come back from the break, if you guys want to stay, you're welcome. If you want to leave, we can continue for a few seconds. I know Dr. Matthews says she's waiting for some turtle. It's not Friday. But, you can have turtles on Tuesday.
She's got to go do some work there.
Yes, it's 2:15. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes, Mom.
She's like, all right, I'm really going now.
Right. Well, any sort of closing thoughts? Dr. Matthews, you want to leave with us? Or? No, not yet. We're still live. Okay.
Well, just to say that we really want to bring awareness to this condition. And we'd like to inform persons that we have the facilities and also the personnel here that manages these conditions very well.
Indeed.
And of course, the hallmark of everything, is information and prevention of. We can't prevent the disease in that sense. I mean, if you already have it, we can't prevent it, but we can prevent the sequelae.
Okay.
Right.
Yes, well.
And make life a little bit more happier.
I'm glad.
And there's a lots and lots and lots to talk about where sickle cell is concerned, especially where pain is concerned and what's in the in the pipeline for the treatment. But
there's a long list.
Dr. Banks and Nurse George, do you guys want to remain after the break, or you want to, join your colleague and get a turtle?
I can give you 15 more minutes.
That's okay. Yes, you sure? All right. We're gonna say, bid Dr. Matthews adieu. When we come back, we'll continue with Nurse Joy and Dr. Banks. We're talking about sickle cell. Listen, we have an invaluable, incredible resource within this community. Let's tap into it so that we can become educated, informed, and very, very proactive. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Busy, busy, busy. Feel like there's not just enough hours in the day. Savannah Pharmacy, service to make your life easier. Now you can WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. And pickup is just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. WhatsApp your prescription order to 929-5045. Savannah Pharmacy, wholesome values with modern conveniences.
Want your kids to gain social skills, independence, self-confidence indoors? King's Sports Center Art of Fun Summer Camp is the solution. Make memories, learn new skills and life skills. Activities include basketball, football, dodgeball, arts and crafts, squash, drama, kids aerobics, bowling, and much, much more. King's Sports Center Art of Fun Summer Camp will be held from July 6th through August 6th. July 6th through August 6th. Monday to Friday from 8:30 a.m. until 5 p.m. Camp includes all activities, 1 lunch, and 2 breaks. For more information, call 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky. Your one-stop facility for fitness, recreation, relaxation.
When you're tight on time and budget, but big on flavor, Subway's Meal of the Day hits the spot. Enjoy daily meals on classic sandwiches like tuna, Black Forest ham, meatball marinara, and more. Starting at $6.25 for 6-inch meals and $8.75 for foot-longs. You can get Subway's Meal of the Day. Enjoy a different sandwich on a different day for the same price. Mix it up with cookies or chips or waffle fries for the same price. Subway. Eat fresh.
As the community continues to take precautions from COVID-19, it is important to stay prepared for other disasters now that we're in the hurricane season. Here are some post-hurricane safety tips from the Department of Environmental Health. Did you know that you must discard fresh fruits and vegetables, meats, foods in canisters, dented, leaking, or rusting cans after they have come in contact with floodwater? For full guidance on post-hurricane safety tips, visit www.deh.gov.ky.
The West Bay Family Fair has something for everyone. Monday, July 5th, enjoy wholesome family fun with free admission to the inaugural West Bay Family Fair at the Ed Bush Stadium and West Bay Heritage Park. Bring your family and friends and learn how to make silver touch rope, blow a concord, or spin a gig. Local arts and crafts will be on sale, and vendors will offer up the best in traditional foods and treats for the kids. Kids of all ages will have their faces painted and participate in several sporting events with McGee's Adventure Park. But wait, there's more. Don't miss the early morning cycle race, the farmers market, live entertainment, awesome raffle prizes, and find out who will win the beautiful baby contest. Stay for the 2-mile fun run and walk and football tournament showcasing some of West Bay's legends. For more information, email noelw@candw.ky or call 916-2134. West Bay Family Fair, Monday, July 5th, Ed Bush Stadium, starting at 7 a.m. This advert is brought to you by Williams Productions and Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome, Mike, and thanks for joining us. And I think this is one of the reasons why I champion healthcare and education. And when I see not just the professionalism, the competence, but the commitment and dedication of the team, I'm so grateful that not only has Dr. Matthews said, you know what, I'm in good company with her colleagues. She remains Nurse Joy Marion together with her Dr. Chela Lamsey Banks for remaining a few extra minutes. Now, Nurse Joy, we see the testing through genetics. We see the work that you've been doing, over the years, and as Dr. Matthews champion. I mean, Dr. Ebanks said, well, we should bubble wrap you, but it's an invaluable resource. And as parents, we understand the importance of being able to test, get a result, but then be able to do something that helps. Mm-hmm. So you have to be commended as they've shared. But talk to us as you wish.
Okay, well, one thing I was thinking about, actually, this evening we're having a sickle cell support group meeting, and Dr. Matthews has been really and truly leading that discussion for I can't tell you how many years, but a very long, long time. And so I would like to invite, the public, whoever would be interested, they can come by Women's Health. Waiting room over at the HSA. It's going to be from 5:30 till 7, and it's usually a small group, but we invite whomsoever will to come. And so we have persons who have the disease mainly, but we also have other persons maybe with maybe just interested, and so we welcome that. And I want to thank Dr. Matthews publicly, because she's been there behind the scenes, and year in and year out right there. So
for those who may not necessarily know, so in that newcomer, for instance, who would like to come along for whatever reason, we know, well, tell us where it is. Women's Health.
Women's Health.
Where would they find it? How would they get to it? So we come to HSA, we park in the main parking lot. It's 5:30 to 7. So they park. Where do they go? How do they get to it?
Okay, I'm going to say that you would go through the main atrium of the hospital.
Okay.
And you would go through to the double doors where there are guards, and you have to get your temperature now because COVID, get that done. And then you pass the elevators, and the first door on the right after that, you go through there. And on the left, you'll see the sign that says Women's Health, Public Health. So they're going right there, and it's the first door on the left. It's in the waiting room.
Near that Do Something statue in that area right there.
Yeah, that's so right.
You can't miss it. So if you get lost, this team there certainly can help to direct you. It's not that big a facility. So,
but you can sometimes get lost in it still.
I got lost once. Never let me forget that. Where are you going? 4th floor? Okay. It's only 2 floors. No, I just kidding. But no.
Yeah.
Again, an information session, for that person who may have a trait never attended, for that person who attends frequently, there's always something to learn.
I find that patient-centered learning is important. So a lot of parents wouldn't necessarily ask me the questions they would feel freer asking somebody who has the disease. I mean, I try to make them as comfortable. You know, they come to the doctor sometimes, and it's easier to talk to somebody who has lived with the disease. So try to encourage the parents of sicklers, newly diagnosed sicklers, or even with the trait, to go at least once and be aware of it and a part of it.
For some reason, I'm glad to know that as a people, we're becoming more and more sort of empowered, but also our best advocates when it comes to healthcare and the like. We look at prenatal care for the expectant mother, and even some would say, well, I'm thinking of down the road, actively planning family. Yeah. That was my question. I mean, they started exercise and eat healthy a few years out. They may take supplements and do different things. Some would probably stop drinking or moderate it. Some would do a lot of things in preparation for down the road. But things happen unexpectedly.
Like pregnant women should take, before you get pregnant, that's when folic acid is useful. So you should be, if you're thinking about having children, and that's important. Again, because Cayman is such a small island, and we have so many genetic diseases that occur. You should, at least if you think it's marrying within families, or you need to go and see Nurse Joy so she can look at the genetics of it, because the recessive diseases make a big difference.
Right. So get that test as well. I mean, before we do many things, right? But maybe there should be no listen, we are thinking of having a child.
But you're going to be in love anyway. Are you going to not have the child if you're...
But knowledge is power, right? You'll know.
You'll be prepared.
Prepared, yeah.
And I think Dr. Lamsey can probably say a little bit more about the recessive, what it really means. In other words, you might have, all I'm saying is that you might have a relative who's affected, who's carrying a particular character, but you don't know that they have it because the gene is recessive. But when they combine with another recessive, and both of you come together and have it, then it's going to express itself. Right?
We don't think about it that way. And I think medicine has come so far that it is that a lot of children or persons with recessive diseases are now living longer and are now having children of their own, and so it propagates to some extent. It is increasing, but not. I think it's because of we screen and we're aware of it, so you now know what's going on.
Right.
But I think that if you are in love and you're thinking about having children, you got married, that would be a very smart thing to do. You ask the person, do you have sickle cell trait? Do you know if you have...
But then they'll still say, I love him so much, I'm willing to take a chance. It's only a probability. Yeah. I mean, there's a chance I might win the lottery, but I never won it. So I probably...
But at least you'd be prepared.
But be prepared. At least prepared for what might happen and how to manage if anything happens.
And all women that come to our women's health center and women's clinic get the hemoglobin electrophoresis done in pregnancy. So you are told, but if you didn't know before, at least you know with this baby you have the trait. And then they would have the conversation.
And I think that's also true in the private sector as well, although sometimes they may still do the Sickledex, which is only testing for S, and we do recommend that they do, like Doc said, the hemoglobin electrophoresis, because that covers more.
So not only the 4, but all the 400? I mean...
No, you won't ever find that. Actually, now with the newborn screening, we see babies are coming back with the variant trait, which means that they cannot tell us exactly which one it is, but they know it's there. And sometimes we never get that figured out because most labs don't do more than like 10 different types.
2 questions. Since we've only been doing the testing for like 2 decades or so, to that extent, those of us who were born prior to that, 40s and 50s, not teenagers like you guys, could be have the trait and don't know if you've never been tested.
Sure, you bet. And with families where we knew the risk was high from the 70s, there was testing within the high-risk families here. And then in the 80s, they started doing doing at least the Sickledex at first, and then hemoglobin elect for kids when they started school. But now that that's not, they're needed as much because the babies are being tested. However, there's still kids that come in from overseas and that kind of thing, you know? So
let's put it this way. When I was in med school, when I started learning about sickle cell, I went to find out if I had the trait. Because I already had kids. I was like, but I need to know this. This is important, and I want to know.
Yeah,
so
makes sense. Maybe a discussion another time with a different panel if you want. But I was thinking also, we look at maybe on the arena of sort of bioethics, but gene editing and the like increasingly.
Now that's where the treatment is for sickle cell now. That is where they're looking at, because it's the optimal disease for genetic engineering because it's just one point on a gene. It's not even the chromosome. It's just what we call a point mutation. So it's literally just one thing that changes, and everybody that has it has that one thing that has changed. So it is at the forefront of the treatments that they are looking at, but there's nothing that's been out that can be routinely given to sicklers as yet. But that is where a lot of the testing is at. And that would be a cure more so than a bone marrow transplant, because you would keep your own bone marrow. So that is where it is heading. But for now, hydroxyurea has revolutionized in terms of children and sickle cell.
And adults as well. With the crises.
Maybe my final question. We talk about folic acid. I think those of us who either as mothers as mothers or even involved partners recognize the folic acid being administered prenatally. And then we see, as you shared, folic acid being given to sicklers. Right? But what about as normal healthy adults, male and female, either with the trait, with the disease, or ordinarily? Would folic acid be a good supplement to have?
We give them.
Well,
actually, you find it in a lot of
it's in a lot of food, and a lot of the cereals, and a lot of the if you're taking your multivitamins. I'm multivitamins to me it's a controversial, because I do not. If your child is healthy and eating from a well-balanced diet, and don't have any underlying diseases, they don't necessarily need multivitamins, because they're not going to store those nutrients. So it's better if they're getting it from food. But if you have like picky eaters, kids that and if all they have in is Burger King or, in all honesty, Wendy's, then multivitamins would be important, but I would rather you get it from your food, so you eat a well-balanced diet, which we've all learned from primary school to secondary school.
And those days we had moms at home who just make sure to eat.
Here, dads too?
Mom and dad. Don't not leaving that table until you finish that meal.
And it was good meals.
We're all busy now. So.
Well, I genuinely, I say this all the time. This level of discourse helps to inform us. It is unsettling for some. For some, we'll discard it because it doesn't concern us. The season 5:37 at HSC, that meeting, not only will benefit the immediate group, but even us as people who want to be informed, but who may be thinking. I mean, there may be a couple now who are thinking, well, it could go, but we don't know. Here's a good way to get information. It's a free session. It's invaluable. It may be life-saving, life-changing. It may be so impactful, but yet we take so much for granted. And I'm grateful that you would have extended your time and stayed with us. Thanks very much.
Just one. Are we finished? Just one word I want to say before we go on. I just want to put a plug in for the trait. Right? It is. I mean, I was taught that it's a benign carrier state. You have no symptoms. Not true.
Not true.
We're finding out now that they have joint pains, etc. They can. Also, it's very important that if you have a child with a trait, make sure you seek medical attention. If they have things like abdominal pain, blood in the urine, or if you notice that they are they have a very low exercise tolerance. It's important.
Yellowing of the eyes. If you find their eyes are getting yellower than they usually are, then you come in.
Make sure you seek medical attention. You don't have to seek medical attention for every slight joint pain, but certainly the big things.
If you find it's not going away, if you give them a painkiller, you give them paracetamol or Motrin, and they're still in pain or it's happening, then you just come in and do.
Knowledge is power. I mean, if you have the trait, there may be activities that you referenced earlier, attitudes.
The manifestation depends on the amount of
well, not anymore. We did go in planes. We're now grounded.
You see, with the traits, you have both the normal hemoglobin and the sickle hemoglobin. And it depends on how much of the normal you have, where you manifest and how you manage as a carrier.
We aim for less than 30% if we are treating, because I mean, we didn't go into the details. So the sicklers, some of them have to get blood transfusions all the time if they have certain sequelae that occur, like strokes. If you've had a stroke and you're a sickler, then you're going to get blood transfusions. That's and the transcranial Doppler. So there are a lot of new.
You mentioned that.
Yes, the transcranial. There's so much to talk about, which is the strokes. That's the yearly screening of your transcranial Doppler will say whether or not you have increased risk. They found that a lot of sicklers were having silent strokes, and that was.
And stuff?
Yeah, and that was affecting them in school, if you think about the children and development. And so they were a little slower in school, and it is because they were having these silent strokes that nobody picked up.
Right.
The first time I saw a stroke in a child, as I mentioned before, starting on my lecture, is right here in Cayman. A child with sickle cell disease. This child came in and had a baby. 2 years old.
Well, thank you all very much, right? And I really appreciate it. I hope people will come this evening, and all of the monthly sessions. Our resource is here for you. Nurse Joy, as the colleagues have shared. Invaluable. Have a wonderful rest of the week. We are grounded and can't go on planes, but the other ways get high, so let's enjoy. And well, exercise, the endorphins, and the like, the being very, very healthy. We have to enjoy life, Dr. Matthews.
Okay.
You know what? A little like you, we always have.
No, Heideke.
Yeah.
I've changed my.
So, listeners, join Mr. Art in the morning for the record. Come back for Talk Today right after the midday news and midday meditation, and enjoy yourselves. It's only a Tuesday, but who knows? You'll be able to save us some chocolate later. So, until then, be blessed.
Thank you so much.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays. And Royal Fidelity Bank and Trust, money at work.
Cayman, the voice,
the heart,
the soul of the Cayman Islands.